And now on the Israeli-Lebanese border conflict, because Hezbollah and Israel have been urged to abide by UN Resolution 1701, which ended the 2006 war. It bars Hezbollah from operating between the Litani River and the Blue Line, the unofficial border with Israel. Now, Israel was instructed to remove all of its troops from Lebanese territory. However, neither side has ever fully complied with the resolution. Since October the 7th, Hezbollah and Israeli forces have exchanged fire on a near-daily basis. The armed group says it will only cease hostilities if Israel withdraws from Gaza. More than 60,000 people have now been evacuated from northern Israel after months of cross-border attacks, and more than 90,000 have been displaced in southern Lebanon. Last week, the Israeli army killed a senior Hezbollah commander, Talib Abdullah. The group responded by launching an unprecedented barrage of rockets into northern Israel. Elijah Magnier is a military and political analyst and joins us now from Paris. Good to have you with us on the programme. Real concern that the fighting to the north of Israel is now the new front. So it's no surprise the US has dispatched yet another envoy to find a way to de-escalate the situation between Israel and Hezbollah, but using those Lebanese politicians in the middle. Is anybody going to listen?
Thank you for having me. Well, no, nobody is going to listen unless Israel stops the crimes against humanity and war crimes against the Palestinians in Gaza. And that was very clear message that was forwarded to the US envoy, Amos Hochstein, by saying, stop the war in Gaza and everything will stop. And it is not in the interest of the Israeli to see the war ongoing. When the Israeli military spokesperson, General Daniel Hagari, said that Hezbollah has launched 5,000 rocket missiles and drones, Israel had 5,000 reasons to start a war on Lebanon, but it is not in its advantage and not in its capability to open two fronts, particularly when the Lebanese front is not that easy to conquer or even to attack without having a very strong fireback on the Israeli army, society, and even existential threat to Israel.
While the military's focus might now well be the areas of northern Gaza, they have to a certain extent advised the Israeli government that there's very little left for them to do in Gaza, so they should pivot. The political establishment doesn't think, as you say, that is the right move. When do you think there will be a time to draw the line under Gaza for Tel Aviv?
Well, the front on Lebanon is costing the Israelis a lot. It is really degrading the reputation of Israel more than what it is already by what the Israelis have been doing in Gaza. Nevertheless, we have also heard from the Israelis that they will continue the operation in the next 2 weeks in Rafah because they have exhausted all the options without reaching any of the objectives stated from the beginning. The resistance, the Palestinian resistance is still very strong, is engaged with the Israelis in the north, in the south, and in Rafah, inflicting heavy casualties on a daily basis that the Israelis are recognizing. There is no point in reaching any objective in Gaza at the moment. And this is where we've seen the military and the politicians blaming one another. The politicians are saying to the military, you're not managing to achieve the objective. And the military are telling the politician, you have given us objectives that are impossible to reach. At the end of the day, we have signals from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he is going toward a de-escalation and perhaps start a negotiation with Hamas because he understood that he's reaching a deadline and a deadlock.
And indeed, what we're hearing even from the American envoy in Lebanon is this line that Hamas have to accept the deal, Hamas have to accept the ceasefire. Yet Hamas have told Al Jazeera, they've told various news outlets, they have accepted the Biden deal. But the narrative that the Americans keep projecting is that they haven't and that Israel has accepted it, yet Israel is still bombing Gaza.
You're absolutely right. We've heard Hamas twice saying that they have accepted the deal. We have heard Biden saying this is an Israeli plan, and he is forwarding an Israeli plan, not an American plan, but it is approved by the Americans. We have not heard Israel saying this is our plan and we accept it overtly. On the contrary, we've heard Benjamin Netanyahu saying where there are many inaccuracies in what Biden has forwarded, which is an Israeli plan, that Biden spent 80% of his speech trying to convince the Israelis of a plan they have forwarded. Now, there is a point here that Biden said in the Israeli plan that there is a ceasefire that should be established, that the war should come to an end because the Americans are still protecting the Israelis. They're not acting against Israel. They're telling the Israeli, we've given you enough time to do your war, to massacre whoever you want, to destroy Gaza, and you have failed to achieve your objectives. Time to sit around the table, and perhaps we can try to deter Hamas in maybe switching their arms on the humanitarian support or on the reconstructions. But that is depending on the war that Benjamin Netanyahu is conducting. That is his personal war, afraid of falling with his government. So the time of ceasefire is important to initiate the negotiation. And this is what the Israelis are fearing in the power today, because that means the end of the war, or at least the cessation of hostility. And I think the Israelis are trying to find a way where Benjamin Netanyahu can remain in power and perhaps getting rid of Magnier and Smotrich.
And very briefly then, Elijah, I mean, how do you think the sort of conversation that you have in Israel generally is that they continually need a foe? And if Gaza is nearly finished, is the new foe the ongoing fight with Hezbollah in the north? And can they really maintain this? And will at some stage Israel's allies become tired of supporting Tel Aviv in their ongoing narrative that they are the victim and that they need to be protected?
Well, killing 37,500, of which 16,500 children in Gaza, and the total is mainly civilians, that is far from being a victim, particularly when the ICC is considering the arrest warrant against Netanyahu, his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, and when Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, blacklisted Israel along with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram, considering them as terrorists. That is really significant. Now, they cannot maintain a war with a mini war with Lebanon, so we cannot imagine a bigger war, how devastating is going to be. Exactly what the General Breck said, if Netanyahu goes to war with Lebanon, we would wake up one day like a Holocaust, an atomic bomb has exploded in the center of Israel.
We shall see what happens, certainly, in the coming hours. Obviously, very delicate times in the Middle East. Elijah Magnier, thanks so much for joining us from Paris.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.